Oh, hello. Do you think that Big Brother's watching? Or that the Illuminati is planning to take over the world? Have you happened to have an encounter with a space alien today? Well, if the answer to those questions is yes, then grab your hat. This is tinfoil hat time. Welcome back to tinfoil hat time. You know, this just isn't as menacing with a cat as cute as this, but I wanted to start out petting a cat so I can seem like an evil James Bond villain or something with this hat. So today we're going to talk about health trackers and data. And you probably can't see Roger behind me here, but Roger is wearing his little health tracker. In reality, it's just a little band. But I wanted to use that for the picture. It looks nice and menacing. And what we're going to do here is we are going to have a look at health trackers, the problem with health trackers, the major issues to be had with the health trackers. So what is the big deal? And I got to start by telling a little bit about my story as it relates to health trackers. Now, I've always been in fairly good health, but I don't know, about right around maybe 10 years ago or so, I was finishing my doctor's and starting a professorship, and so I was either 30 miles this way in a car teaching or 30 miles that way in a car doing something related to my research, and I just didn't have a chance to really exercise much. I was getting older at that time, and of course when you get older, your body starts breaking down. Your metabolism doesn't work quite as well. And so I gained a little bit of weight. And there was probably about, I want to say it was about like 6 or 7 years ago, though, I said, well, I'm going to go ahead and get all that weight off because I have a little bit more flexibility of my schedule now. And so at that time, I started to run. I started to do more weights. I started to just take care of myself a little bit more. But right around that time, I also got my very first smartphone, and that was the Commando from Casio. And the Commando had its own set of apps that were built into it, and they were basically all outside activity apps to match the fact that the Commando was a pretty indestructible phone. It was a very, very nice phone in that respect. So I found the pedometer on there, and I was actually able to turn on a pedometer and throw that thing in my pocket whenever I'd go anywhere, and I was actually able to use that data and log how many steps I've done or whatever else. And that kind of started, for me, an interest in logging a lot of that type of stuff. Now, I was always a geek. I was such a spreadsheet geek. Most people in our physics class in college failed the physics lab, and I was the only guy that got straight A's simply because I knew how to make a spreadsheet look good. And then, of course, I went out, had my job, and I was logging my timesheets, plotting it against my take-home pay versus my gross pay. And what I ended up doing in that case is logging a spreadsheet that would tell me within, I think, 5 cents what my exact check was going to be worth after they take out their taxes and whatever. So, I mean, I've always been a geek with spreadsheets and things. And so I have spreadsheet logs that I've created and stuff like that. And I just like looking at the data, and I like keeping track of that data so I can see what it looks like. So all of that being said, what I started to do is logging how far I'd run, and in that case, I had the time really. What was the length of time that I was able to run, and the pedometer was able to tell me how many steps did I take in any given day, and I actually logged all this stuff into my calendar at the time, where I was tracking a lot of different information, and so for me, I like any information that can give us the type of data tracking. And when I first started to see things like Fitbits and the Garmin's and the Ups start hitting the market, where it had the capability of logging all this data and then allowing you to export it, for me, I really liked the concept. And so I started looking into them, and I observed this one observation, and that is that every single one of these things requires you to create an account on the servers for that company. And that's just something I'm not really willing to do. And so for me, what I wanted to look at here today is what is the danger with all these health tracking apps? And we're going to have a look at multiple points. So at the end of this video, let me know what you thought of this one. The Tinfoil Hat Time series is not my most popular, but it is certainly my favorite. But what I'm trying to do here is I've actually written an outline, which I don't usually do. So I'm going to start out with the outline. I basically had some information there. But what we're going to talk about next is the data collection. So are these things really collecting all of this data? Well, what I did is I had a look online when I was first researching these health apps. I went on and I had a look, and frankly, I found that every single one of these health trackers, you had to create an account online to actually use it. In my research here today, I found one or two that allows you to actually collect data. And with the data that you collect, you can look at some of the data, but if you want to get anything that's useful, you really have to have those connected to their smartphone app. And so you have that basic premise going for you. And so what I want to do here is, first thing we're going to do is we are going to have a quick look at Fitbit's privacy policy. So we're going to go over here and look at my screen. And this is Fitbit's privacy policy. And most of these platforms have a similar one. I wanted to pick out Fitbit because, number one, it's the most common. It's kind of like the leader in this industry, if not in the functionality, at least in the name. But the second reason is they wanted to update their privacy policy so that, in fact, they kind of made me feel like, ever see that movie Philadelphia? The guy's like, explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. Well, that's how they kind of wanted to take the approach here. Okay, let's talk about privacy publicly. Ooh, because if you don't talk about your privacy, they realize that this is a big issue. So their idea is, hey, look, we're sharing with you our privacy policy, and that does not make me any less concerned. Okay, so it says, we know policies are important, but sometimes they get pretty confusing. Explain this to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So we wanted to give you everything you need to know about our privacy policy in one quick summary. So our pledge is to respect your privacy, to be transparent about our data practices, and to keep your data safe, to never sell your personal data, and to let you decide how your information is shared, and only to collect data that helps us improve our products and services. And the amount of information that they actually collect is shocking. Now, of course, if you want more information, please, you can peruse our full privacy policy. I actually didn't even see this like the first time. So let's have a quick look. So here's all their legal. So this is effectively the legal one that is effectively the binding policy that you are keeping to when you are signing up for the account. The privacy policy that they give you that you probably didn't read. This is the one that, let's see. So we store your data, PII is personally identifying information, as long as you maintain your Fitbit account. I'm pretty sure, I don't know. The tinfoil hat part of me says I bet they're keeping that data longer than that, but okay, we'll take them at their word on that. Unless something happens that would indicate otherwise, that's probably a pretty good bet. All right, so there's de-identified data that could identify you. And actually, there was a part that we're going to look at here. We're going to close this out. We're going to go look at the 5-year-old version. Not the 5-year-old as in it's 5 years old, but the 5-year-old version as in talk to me like I'm a 5-year-old. What information do we collect? Of course, from and this is like the language of this makes me want to cringe, okay? What we collect, from motivational sayings to fitness tips, we think it's important to collect things that make us better. That's why we collect data when you use our products and services, because that information helps us get to know you and create a better experience all for you. And you deserve the best. Of course, you have to click on the button there to see what they actually collect. So if you read through this, they collect your height, your weight, your BMI, the amount of steps that you take, of course, battery level. IP address so that, you make sure that you're getting content that's relative to you and your location. Yeah. Okay. Cookies in life and online. We like them a lot in moderation. Of course, they have cookies. There's a cookie policy. Friends, when you add friends to your Fitbit account by email, we'll use the contact information. Oh, Lord, that's all we need is for all of my friends to start sending me requests. Like Farmville wasn't bad enough. Now I'm going to get Fitbit requests. All right. GPS locations. So they're using general and specific locations. And again, if you're using a platform that you're utilizing that type of a control, then yes, they need to keep that type of information. Because if you're asking the thing to determine how long you ran, they need to keep that precise information. Of course, they want to save your email address, your date of birth, and your Fitbit account. If you create a food log, they keep all of that in there. If you upload pictures, set alarms, any of that information. Of course, your contact information, we've tried, but we just can't get that psychic thing down, It's like, who is this written by? Some college intern hipster? I don't know. Anyway, purchase details, we save access to your purchase information. Let's see. Oh, Lord, this makes me want to cringe. Of course, social media, if you use Facebook or Google Plus to create your account, or if you connect your Fitbit account with those accounts, we'll ask for permission to access basic information, such as your name or profile picture, and of course, your friends list. So, we have to keep that comprehensive thing. Why we collect data, of course, because no, wait, never mind. I was going to say we're a big evil corporation. Okay. Of course, we want to collect the information. We use your personal information like height, weight, and gender to be able to be more accurate about the stats your device is tracking. So how many calories you burn. And there itself, if you watched my video last week where the Department of Agriculture is poisoning us, the entire faulty premise of counting calories is a major flaw. Like, we'll leave it at that for now, but the entire basis of all of these types of health apps, whether it's the health trackers, the health apps, the things you manually log, all of them are all going off that same old calories in, calories out. It's all about the calorie counting mantra, and that's simply not true. But we can't get around them. All right. So to protect you, we may use the data and logs to research, understand, troubleshoot, and improve products and services to protect against error or criminal activity and to enforce our terms of service. Dun, dun, dun. All right, to stay in touch, of course, we want to annoy you with emails. And then to do better, we use de-identified data that does not identify you personally, to share general information about people's activities. For example, we might create an infographic about popular summer workouts to use in new marketing email. All right. Who do we sell data to? This one was an interesting one because we have the data that doesn't identify you. We may sell or aggregate de-identified data that can't be linked back to you with partners and the public in a variety of ways, such as providing research or reports about public health and fitness as part of our premium membership. All right. Of course, data that could identify you. This is an interesting one because personally identified information, PII, is data that includes personal identifier like your name, your email address, or data that can be reasonably linked back to you. We only share this data under extremely limited circumstances. They're not telling me what those limited circumstances are. I really want to know. It takes you to a dead link. So I'm not sure what these limited circumstances are that they're sharing personally identifiable information. They're not telling me. I might have to dig through that legalese version to figure that out. Of course, data that you tell us to share. You can direct us to share data with other parties, like when you link your Fitbit account to a third-party app, send status updates to Facebook or Twitter account, or direct us to share data with your employer as part of a wellness program. All right. So, of course, obviously, if you do want to share that information, you want to put it up on Facebook, you want to participate in a wellness program. And this is a friend of mine had an issue with these types of wellness programs at employment situations, because now it's like you pay more if you do not choose to give your employer all this information. And we're going to talk about this information. Now, of course, if you check out the article that accompanies this, I actually outline the simply what information is being collected. And of course, there's ways you can share the data. what people are saying. Unlike every other terms of service, Fitbit's privacy policy is not legalese. No, this is the 5-year-old version. This is not the legally binding one. Go check out the legally binding one for that. Fitbit customers should be aware that this company cares very much about their privacy and their security. We are urging all other fitness tracking companies to follow Fitbit's leads and adopt similar privacy policies. Ooh, a senator. Okay. So senators telling me that their privacy policies A-okay. All right. Oh boy. Obviously, I did not look at all of these apps, but I was looking around at the various different platforms, and I kind of picked randomly one app that I hadn't heard of before. And this is with a company. This is a Swiss health tracking company, and this was interesting because they have the health trackers that are a very nice, better appealing looking things. But their app is the HealthMate app. And Withings is, let's see if I can go to their actual website or not. Can I go to their actual real website, not this stuff? Tell you what, let's see. Let me just do a search for them real quick. Have a quick look at what they have. All right. Oh, they're not the people with that smart hair. Oh, Lord, they're the people with the smart hairbrush. Have you seen the smart hairbrush? It measures the sound as you brush your hair. I want coffee. The world's first smart hairbrush empowers you to track and improve your hair health over time. All right, let's get back to this. So these are the people that came up with the smart hairbrush. Anyway, you can see their health trackers. They look cool, much cooler than other ones do. Oh boy. Well, anyway, here's their app. I wonder if they have one for their hairbrush too. Not sure. They might. Let's see. Let's look at this. Do we have an app? Oh man. There is. It's a hair health app. No, I definitely don't want to sign up to you. Okay. We're going off the grid. We're going off my schedule. I gotta know. Let's look this up. Hair health, please. Oh, come on. I want information on the hair health app. Let's see. I should be able to look at other apps by this company. Let's see. Open that. HealthMate. Home security, with baby. I'm going to look at that one too. Okay. That one's apparently not going anywhere yet. Oh Lord, I shudder to think what might be in their hair app. Apparently their hair app is not up yet. I think that the brush is still in the prototype stages. It was just really displayed at CES. Anyway, here is the permissions detail for this app. Are you ready? Remember I said look at the permissions detail. Find accounts on this device. Read calendar events plus confidential information. Find accounts on the device. Read your contacts. Approximate location, precise location, send and receive text messages, read phone status, read contents or USB storage, read the contents of your USB storage again. Modify or delete the contents of USB storage twice. Read the contents of your USB storage 4 times. All right, fine. Read the contents of your USB storage and modify or delete contents of your USB storage cubed. Or quadrupled? I don't know. Camera, take pictures and video. View Wi-Fi connections. Read phone status and identify. And identity. Receive data from the internet. View network connections. Pair Bluetooth devices. Access Bluetooth settings. Control flashlight. Full network access. Run at startup. Control vibration and prevent from sleeping. That is a whole lot of permissions. Pretty much it says, hey, we want to have access to everything, period. And I shudder to think what the hairbrush app is going to do. I need more coffee. Hairbrush app. Not only is there a smartphone that records everything about your hair, there's an app to go with it that probably tracks all this data and more. Let's send an SMS message to my friend informing them that I have beautiful hair. All right. Wow. Okay, let's get back onto my topic here, because holy moly. Sharing data with friends. Hey, look at that. Of course, you can share your data with friends. This might be one of the good things and or the bad things with all these health trackers, is the ability to compare it with your friends and see how your friends are doing, etc. And so, really, that's I got to close that. I'm losing it with the hairbrush thing. All right. So obviously, there have been a few different articles on all the personal data that is accompanying the health tracker market. So this was one of the better articles that I had read from Business Insider, and so the biggest this article does bring up a lot of the major issues that I want to talk about here, because I'm going to talk about two different issues: the legal issues and the illegal issues, that are both issues that are cause enough and concern enough to be in mind. But gray market wants to know all about you. So have a read through this article. I have it linked on the accompanying article at switchtolinux.com. And what we want to do here, though, is I want to talk first about the illegal part of the concern with this, and that is hackers. There are 3 different connection points that are made, and I can't remember if this article is the one that identified all 3 or not. No, it was another one I was reading. But there's three basic levels of connectivity with these devices. First, we have the device itself, and then we have the shortwave transmission to your smartphone, and then we have the linking to the online accounts. Because all of these devices sync their data to online accounts, and you really can't use the devices without syncing it to online accounts and creating completely verifiable information online. So you have that. And then what happens is you have the ability to basically, there's a few things. Number one is, for about $100, you can develop a shortwave tracker that if you get close enough to anybody wearing any one of these fitness trackers, you can grab all the data off of it, which even includes personally identifiable information once you get the thing set up right. And so you can, on the short-range hacker level, you could create a device that skims and collects all of this data and all of this information. So that's one area. But that's a very limited market. It's a very limited field. You're not going to get a lot of useful information doing that. The shortwave connectivity to the smartphone and the smartphone interaction, that itself is even harder because it's a single target. But where the biggest targets are is the company servers that store all of this data. Because we know a few things about companies. So first is, they're not going to go out of their way to make things super secure if it costs them too much money. This was an example with Target. If you remember the Target hack, their system was out of date. They knew their system was out of date. They simply did not want to spend the money to bring their system up to date. And so all of that being said, Target ends up getting hacked and causing this huge issue simply because a company cared more about saving a few dollars than they cared about privacy. And that's a huge corporation with a large budget. A lot of these health tracking apps, these are small startup companies. And I'll tell you something about small startup companies because I'm part of some. And a small startup company has a very, very few amount of employees, and they're spread way too thin. And it's very difficult to get in there and make sure that everything is perpetually secured, especially if you do not have good IT on your field. And it's a bad assumption to say many of these groups would. And so with all of that being said, what ends up happening is these sites can become a big target for hackers. And if a hacker gets in there and collects information, for example, there are, according to a recent report less than a year old, Fitbit has 9.5 million active users. That's just one of them. And they're one of the larger ones. I'm not sure what their resources look like. But if a hacker were to get in there and compromise those 9.5 million records, now they have real user information. Information, verified information, names, addresses, email addresses, and health information. How much you exercise, how much you sleep, a lot of useful information. And health information sells on the black market. Some reports said as much as 10 times more than credit card and other financial information. So people are buying up health information online. Now, usually those reports were done looking at break-ins to hospitals and full-fledged medical records, but the amount of information that is being stored about how much you are exercising and how much you are tracking and all of this data, that is still very, very good information for a hacker to get. And so I was going to show our article here from Rutgers about the hacking of the medical data and things like that, but they're playing video ads in here, and I do not have ad blocker on this particular computer yet, so we're not going to mess with that right now. All right. So we've already talked about these are small companies. They're not always the most secure. They're hacking targets. So your data could very feasibly get hacked without a big deal. And I just think that level of data it's too important to keep that data off the internet for the most part. All right. Now, that's the illegal part. Obviously, hacking and stealing your data would be illegal. The companies are doing, in theory, what they can to prevent that from happening. They may or may not be doing it very effectively. That is yet to be determined. All right, but there is a legal end of concern for the users of these apps and devices, and that is company buyouts. If you follow what happens with company buyouts, bigger companies or a company, once it becomes significant in the market, like some of these companies are, they will buy and sell entire companies or divisions of companies. So for Garmin, for example, the Garmin health tracker is only one part of the things that they do. And if Garmin were to get in trouble, they very well may say, you know what, this may or may not be a viable option. Let's sell this off to save us some expenses and bring us some quick capital. And companies do that all the time. You know, Kraft goes back and forth between General Mills and Unilever and whatever. And if you track it down, there's only a few number of big companies that control pretty much all of the food type companies. Well, the same type of thing can happen in these. As health tracking companies get bigger and some of them will start to decline, what we're going to start to see, this is such a young market, what we're going to start to see is that some of these bigger companies are going to be absorbed into the smaller ones. Into the larger ones. So if Fitbit is being very successful and is very profitable, we might see them start to phagocytize, would be the word I'm thinking of, the other smaller companies. Of course, that's a biology term, you know, what happens when one cell envelopes another one. And so what happens here is the companies will merge and split and merge and move this division here and that division there. And what's important is that the data goes with the company. This was a big thing with the Radio Shack bankruptcy. Remember Radio Shack's most valuable asset when they just went under the bankruptcy issue? It was their contact list. Your contact list. In these health companies, this is not your name and your zip code and possibly your email address and your address. This is all of that, plus all of your friends, all of your social connections, how much you sleep, what you eat, how much your heartbeat goes, if you have any arrhythmias, because that can be picked up, how much you exercise, the calories that you burn, the hours that you keep. This data is so much about you, and we are willingly putting it on big company servers. Can you not think of any industry that would love to have 10 or 20 or 30 or 50 or 100 million users, verified health tracking data? How about insurance companies? Insurance companies set their prices based on what are called actuation tables. An actuation table is a statistical approximation of life and death and health and sickness and all these other factors. So what happens is you go out to look for insurance, and the rate that you pay depends on a lot of factors. For car insurance, what town do I live in? How old am I? How much debt do I have? How long have I had the same car? What type of job do I have? How far is my commute? They plug all these things into a giant actuation table, and it gives them the statistical percentage of having an accident, and they base the premium upon that number in those actuation tables. All right? And so, with that information being said, it is important to recognize that if a health insurance company were to grab this data, they can move beyond statistical probabilities in an actuation table and start to do something that is more directly targeted, like what the marketing companies are doing with the data that you collect as you move in. Okay, and so what happens is, as applied to the marketing and the internet, as you go around to the different internet sites, you're leaving behind traces and traces and traces and traces and traces of your data. All of that data is picked up and used to link back to you to show you how you're doing, where you're going, and that is all used to specifically target marketing stuff right back to you. Well, if these insurance companies own a company that has 50 million users, personally verifiable health tracking data, including sleeping records and eating records and all this type of stuff, then this company can move way beyond the statistical percentages and actuality tables and look at each individual as an entity as a whole to say, this is the probability you're going to have this or that. And now we are having a big question mark, because if they buy and sell these things, if the wrong business gets a hold of it, we have a major problem. That is why when Facebook or LinkedIn announced that they were going to be bought and sold by Microsoft, I immediately deleted my LinkedIn account because I don't want that type of information at Microsoft. Unfortunately, they probably have it anyway, but regardless, I did all I can possibly do, and I don't use those types of accounts anymore. So there we have a major concern as far as company buyouts. So what do we do? Well, frankly, I think the best and the safest thing to do if you're into that health tracking stuff is to just go back to the way we did things before. You know, have a piece of paper. When I first started keeping track of my health, which was probably actually 15 years ago. In fact, the very first time I ever decided I needed to do something different, because, you know, you're 18, you're 19, you're 20, you don't gain weight. You, like, in college, I worked at 2 fast food restaurants simultaneously, and I lived on campus, and at that time, we had one dining hall with decent food that was open for 2 hours a day, but the fast food restaurants in the bottom of my dorm room was open, I think, 15, 16 hours a day, and it was right at the bottom of my dorm, and I had to buy a meal plan. So if I basically ate fast food at the one job, fast food at the other job, or fast food at the college for 2 years. Last 2 years of college, I ate nothing but fast food. Nothing but fast food. I didn't gain a pound. I also walked a lot. I was still pretty young. But then I went off to grad school. I don't know, 22 at this point in time. 22 or so, almost 23. And I'm not walking nearly as much. I'm getting some donuts because donuts are tasty, and reading some books in coffee shops, and, you know, living the grad school life, sitting down reading. And then I looked out at myself. I'm like, man, I put on some weight. And so I started going out and exercising and stuff. But what I did back then is actually legal pads, just like this. I just kept the little legal pad, and I just wrote the date. And, okay, I'm going to go out for a run. Threw a little digital watch on my wrist, beep, beep. Go running, come back, beep, beep, turn it off, and I just record what it is. You can do the same with health data. If you're more sophisticated, you can open up LibreOffice and, you know, create a spreadsheet with health logs and stuff like that. There's a lot of different things you can do. Now, if that's too barbarian of you, here's another solution that I have found that I like to use for running. So this is a little $20 Android throwaway phone the prepaid from Walmart. It's an LG, I think it's a Verizon set phone. And I bought this for $20. And you turn it on, and of course you have to go through the basic activation screen. I gave the thing a random zip code. Of course, never gave it any other information because I don't really care. I created some Google account that I couldn't tell you what it is if I wanted to, and I downloaded a couple little apps to log my running. So this thing here is not linked to my accounts in any other way, but I can turn it on when I go for a run. I threw a couple songs on here too, so I can plug it into a headphone jack. I can plug it into a headphone jack, turn this guy on, play some music, turn on the GPS. I can track the distance I ran, the time that I ran, all the basic information. While I'm listening to something, throw this guy in my pocket. If it falls out, no big deal, buy another one. And then come back, have my paper logbook that I want to keep. I can write down my time, my distance, my rate. I think that's what I do. I grab my time, my distance, and my runnings, my running average. Grab that off of this information. So this is a good way to do that without compromising your, any potential data or any potential tracking information on another device. And then you just have to be a little bit more prudent about it in keeping track of what you're doing. So I love the idea. I love the things, just like a lot of the modern technology. I love what a lot of the technology can do. I don't love what is being done with it. If I could get any of these health trackers that never required an online account with a company, that I could it could store data, and literally I'd like to just store data, plug it into USB port, plug it into a computer, and download a bunch of data into a spreadsheet, I'd buy that. But I'm not buying one where I have to connect it to an app, I have to sign into a company server, I have to track all that information, I have to give a company all that information, because it's that same turnkey model. Even if I trust the company now, do I trust the company in 5 years when they're going to a bankruptcy or they're being bought out by somebody else? Those are the things we need to think about. So before we run as quickly as we can and embrace every new technology that comes down the pipeline, we should stop and think about what is it the technology does, will it help us, and what do we have to give up in order to do that? Because I bet that most people who use those things have never read the privacy policy, have never read the terms and conditions, and have no idea what the apps and what the devices themselves are actually collecting and storing on company servers that does not belong to you. That data now belongs to them. Think about that. That's the purpose of tinfoil hat time. Think about the long-term consequences of some of this data. This has been Tom with a tinfoil hat time. And I hope that you enjoy switching to Linux.